famous quotation when it comes to interpreting allegory and authorial intent within works of art. Sometimes the curtains are just blue. This quote references all those years spent in high school or college English classes where the goal was to infer why the author made the curtains blue. Do they represent a character's sadness, their despair at the horrendous situation, or does the silky blue sheen represent the gentleness and fragility of a character's soul as it strives to stay pure in a horrid, angsty world? In reality, the curtains are probably blue because the author liked the color blue or chose it at random. This can apply to almost any allegory. Hell, J.R.R. Tolkien was a famous hater of allegory, stating, "I cordially dislike allegory and all its manifestations, and have done so ever since I grew old and weary enough to detect its presence. I much prefer history, true or feigned, with its varied applicability to the thought and experience of readers. I think many confuse applicability with allegory, but the one resides in the freedom of the reader and the other in the purpose domination of the author." What J.R.R. Tolkien meant by that is, people are free to read any sort of allegory into his work, but to him, the curtains are just sharking blue because they're blue. With that being said, let me tell you why I think the Black Mirror episode Nosedive is a perfect allegory for the autistic experience. J.R.R. Tolkien would hate me. Black Mirror has made waves throughout its now 6-season run for its depictions of how technology impacts our social development as a society. Some episodes have very powerful messages about the afterlife and connection, while other episodes are, well, not as powerful. That's not to say that Black Mirror has bad episodes.
Hi there, Ricky from the future. Black Mirror does have bad episodes, and that is Maisie Day.
There are just some that stand out more than others, and some that stand out not at all. Looking at you, Man Against Fire. Nosedive is one of the highest ranked episodes in the series according to IMDb, and its high ranking is mostly due to its depiction of a reality that some believe could actually happen in the future, if not within our lifetime. This episode, starring Bryce Dallas Howard, tells the story of a woman named Lacey who lives in a world where everyone is ranked by every interaction, and those ranks are displayed via social media lenses implanted into their eyes. Lacey is ranked at a 4.2, but she is obsessed with increasing her ranking because she believes it will finally allow her to live the kind of life that will make her happy. Toward this end, she agrees to be the maid of honor at the wedding of a high-ranked friend, where Lacey hopes to give a magnificent speech that will give her the ranking boost she so desperately needs. Unfortunately, a series of tragic events drastically decreases Lacey's ranking, eventually bringing her down from a 4.2 to a 0.0. Lacey is then arrested and placed in a prison cell where her social media lenses are removed, and she finds herself in a charming cursing match with someone in the cell across from her. The episode ends with both Lacey and the other person letting out one long as they are both so relieved to be free of the social media ranking at last. To most people, this episode speaks to the performative nature of social media and how we all feel the need to be our best selves lest the mobs of haters decrease our value and standing within our society. It's also extremely relevant to the nature of cancel culture and how many times we, in our sense of calling out one of the bad ones, get someone fired, destroy their reputation, or essentially, to perhaps put it dramatically, ruin their life by getting them fired and thus robbing them of their healthcare in a country which healthcare is largely tied to employment. This video isn't discussing whether cancel culture exists, or if it does, if it's doing more harm than good. That's a discussion for another day in another video. What this video is about is how many people saw this Black Mirror episode and thought, wow, that could really be our reality one day, without ever realizing that for autistic people, this already is our reality. Before we continue, there are some important disclaimers and definitions that need to be made and explained. First off, not all autistic people mask, nor do they have the capability of doing so. The type of autistic people that I feel this particular allegory is most relevant to are level 1 or 2 autistics with medium to low support needs who are capable of masking. So before you hop into my comment section and tell me that you don't think your 5-year-old autistic nephew would relate to this video, you're right. He wouldn't, because this video isn't about him. Another one down the line maybe, but not this one. Okay, now second, let's talk about masking, where it comes from, what it means, and how it affects autistic people. Within the context of the neurodivergent community, masking is a term that originated decades ago, but only recently started finding its way into mainstream academia as a means of describing the ways in which neurodivergent people, and in this video I mean autistic people, hide their traits and symptoms when interacting with society. Masking is like, oh, shark, how do I explain this? Okay, you know that scene in Men in Black where the alien kills Edgar and then puts on the Edgar suit, and even though it is Edgar's skin, it just doesn't look or feel right?
Is that letter?
That's what masking feels like. I'm an alien wearing a neurotypical suit, and I'm
Secretly plotting on exterminating the whole human race.
Wait, no. This metaphor is getting away from me. Simply put, masking is pretending to be something that you're not. Not because you want to pretend, but because you have to pretend for one reason or another. So how does any of this relate to Black Mirror's episode Nosedive? Well, aside from metaphors of human skin suits, we see another less murdery version of masking from Lacey. In the very beginning of the episode, we see Lacey staring at herself in the mirror while she practices facial expressions and laughter in an attempt to create socially acceptable versions of both. In Lacey's society, there are some weird unwritten rules where if you come off too bold with any emotion, people are less likely to like you, which, at the risk of being too blue curtains, is a rule that is also reflected in how people dress in the episode. If you notice, everyone wears pastel colors because pastel colors are not trying to make a statement of any kind. The type of masking we're seeing here, practicing facial expressions and toning down who you are to make other people happy, is something many autistic people have to do every single day, as many of us don't inherently know the right way to make a facial expression. If we don't practice, we run the risk of being the odd one out. We also see Lacey order drinks and cookies that she clearly doesn't like in order to gain social status, which is similar to how many autistic people will eat foods that are overstimulating just to avoid people finding out that we're autistic. I can tell you from experience that if you don't eat the food that everyone else is eating, they act like you kicked their puppy or something.
All right, that's it. Dishonor. Dishonor on your whole family. Make a note of this. Dishonor on you. Dishonor on your cow.
No, I'm not trying to insult your ancestors. I just can't eat anything with pickles in it because the overstimulation will cause me to have a meltdown. Lacey's masking is especially prevalent at her job doing Lord knows what. When she comes across a coworker, Chess, who has suddenly dropped in ranking. Lacey tries to be kind and interact with Chess, but she's immediately chastised for it, as her coworkers believe that she should know that Chess is being shunned for his involvement in a breakup. When Lacey once more tries to be empathetic, she's chastised again, as she should know to be on Chess's partner's side and not on Chess's side. Lacey immediately changes tunes as
Sure. Obviously.
as a way to save face, but it's not obvious. These sorts of unspoken rules and power plays are obvious to other people because they can pick up on the subtext and social cues. Lacey knows that something is wrong for Chess's ranking to have suddenly dropped, but unlike everyone else, she doesn't think that he must be at fault. She takes the drop in ranking at face value and tries to be kind instead of ignoring him. This results in her being socially punished, much like what happens to autistic people after we unknowingly associate with one of the bad ones. And it's obvious that Lacey continues to ignore Chess because she's afraid to drop into social ranking, not because she actually believes he's in the wrong. This is a real risk that many autistic people must balance, violating our strong sense of justice in order to avoid risking our social and physical safety. I can't say that I've ever participated in the dogpiling or bullying of other people in order to maintain the status quo, but I can say that there have been times that I didn't speak up despite wanting to, so as to avoid making waves even at the expense of my autistic sense of social justice. Side note, that sentence is totally going to violate a lot of autistic people's sense of Aspie supremacy rhetoric that says a strong sense of justice being an autistic trait means that we're all completely infallible and incapable of harming others when we know it's wrong to do so. We, just like any other person, are completely fallible, and more than any others, we're at risk for succumbing to peer pressure. Everyone is.
It'll happen to you. No way, man. We're gonna keep on rocking forever. 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 Forever.
All the masking that Lacey does builds up, and it all comes to a head when she's practicing her speech in front of her brother. He points out exactly what she's doing. She's pretending to be happy and ignoring the way that people treat her in order to have a false sense of happiness that isn't actually achievable because fully fitting in isn't possible.
High fours like Naomi? I bet they're suicidal on the inside.
This leads to a blow-up fight where Lacey lashes out at her brother. She may have been fine after that, had her plane not been delayed, thus shifting her entire schedule and putting her plans into jeopardy.
I'm maid of honor. I cannot miss this wedding.
And I am so sorry about that.
the straw that broke the camel's back. Lacey's ability to mask her feelings and behavior disintegrates. Her subsequent meltdown, complete with flapping hand gestures very similar to autistic people in meltdown, places her on double damage, where all negative feedback causes twice the penalty. This again reflects what can happen to an autistic person who has been masking for so long that they can't avoid a huge meltdown. People react worse to that meltdown because they finally see that the autistic person isn't one of them. They've only been pretending.
Everyone at the head enhancement clinic said nobody would notice.
Despite everyone informing Lacey that they don't want her at the wedding, she's determined to go and give her speech. She's so desperate that she sneaks around the armed guards posted at the wedding, because Lord knows rich people need snipers to protect a wedding from poor people. She sneaks around the armed guards posted at the wedding, even though she knows there's no chance of her getting the points that she needs to regain or raise her social ranking. She's officially gone past the point of no return and isn't even trying that hard, if at all, to maintain any sense of decorum.
I'll cut his head off and stick it on my ass!
She's not making a speech anymore. Hell, she barely even remembers the speech when she finally fights her way up to the microphone. She's become a person who's completely unmasked and is hyper-fixated on the commitment that she made. A commitment that will be fulfilled even if it kills her. I mean, literally, the guards have military-level guns with him. Are poor people that much of a threat to you? After Lacey is arrested and thankfully not shot, her social media lenses are removed and she sits in her cell half naked. Man across from her tells her rather bluntly that he doesn't like her bra, and she retorts bluntly,
Give a shit about your world.
The two engage in comebacks with each other, both seeming to thoroughly enjoy being blunt and insulting because they're both finally free from being surrounded by people they need to impress. They've finally found a community where they can actually be themselves. Now, I know what you're thinking after all of that. There is no possible way that this episode could be a metaphor or an allegory for autism. The pressure of pretending just got to Lacey, just like it got to the old trucker woman Susan, who gave Lacey a ride and shares a similar backstory. But there's a stark difference between Lacey and Susan's stories. Susan didn't stop performing the social media game because the pressure got to her. She stopped performing because her husband still died due to his social ranking not being high enough to make him deserving of cancer treatment. Susan saw the flaws in the social media system and stopped caring because she realized that it had nothing to do with life itself, much like the people who can recognize social cues and still choose to ignore them because they don't see the point in playing social games. Autistic people often can't see why they're failing despite trying their hardest, just like Lacey. This line of dialogue is what solidified the allegory for me.
Don't try too hard, it's impossible to respect.
That's why Lacey can't get the points that she needs. Because she has to try. She can't effortlessly integrate into society the way other people in her life or office can. She has to try to play the game, whereas other people are just born knowing the right moves to make. When you're autistic, it doesn't matter how much you play the social niceties game, and it doesn't matter how good you think you are at it. You're never going to fully integrate into society or a social group until you find people who allow you to be yourself. Do I think there was any authorial intent behind this allegory for autism? No, absolutely not. In this case, I think the curtains are just sharking blue. But I do think that there is something to be said about how well this episode fits into the current reality for many autistic people. This is a reality that we live every day outside of social media. For me, growing up as an autistic child, it always felt like there was this invisible wall between me and other people. Like, there was always them, and then over here there was me. Sometimes they'd let me stand next to them, but I was never with them, and I never knew why. I never knew that there was some invisible ranking system that told them I'm different, maybe even less than them. I wasn't worthy of their time or friendship. Black Mirror's episode Nosedive is what it felt like to grow up as an autistic person, because the second I finally stopped giving a shark about pretending to be like them, I discovered how to be like me. And with that came people who wanted me to be me. And that's all anyone can ask for in this world. Hey, hello there! If you like this video, please be sure to give it a like and maybe even subscribe to the channel. Hit the bell to get notified. That way I'm not just talking into the void constantly. I need to know I exist and that my words matter. If you do like this video and you want to support the channel, consider subscribing to the Patreon. We have quite a few tiers on there, which include early script access. All tiers include early video access and also interaction with me. You can interact with me on a day-to-day basis. You could call me a dumb hoe. One of these days someone's going to take me up on that, and I will be very sad when it happens. If you are not able to contribute to the Patreon at the time, that's okay. Liking and subscribing and leaving a nice comment is free. Please don't call me a dumb hoe. You have to pay for that. Also consider checking out my store. We got a couple of really cool shirts, including Autistic Bimbo, Autistic Himbo, and even Autistic Thembo, because being beautiful and dumb as rocks has no gender. We also have some upcoming merch, including Autistic Tramp, because somebody on Instagram called me a tramp, and I am petty as fuck, so I have to make money off of that now. Leave a comment down below of other media that you'd like me to discuss, whether it's about autism, feminism. Oh god, is that all I know? I really am a bimbo. Until then, I hope to see you in the next video. Have a wonderful day!